Hello and welcome to the My Amazon Guy podcast. Today I'm joined by none other than Joe Valley of Quiet Light Brokerage. Longtime guest, comes on every so often. Joe, thanks for coming on.
Good to be here, Stephen. Thanks for having me back.
So today we're going to be talking about aggregators, and there's been a lot of news and a lot of buzz about layoffs, failing to hit targets, and some other things that are going on. That's not every single aggregator, but there's a lot of them that are having some struggles right now. And Joe, because he knows a lot about what's going on in the space, I decided to bring him on to talk about it. So Joe, what are you seeing?
Well, first, let me just state that, with Quiet Light, people think that brokerage firms, M&A firms like ours, are selling everything to aggregators, that they're the only ones buying FBA businesses. But I have to tell you, we grew 85% in 2021 over 2020. We've grown 40, 50% a year, but this doubled. And of the 215 million in total transactions that we did, only 30% were sold to aggregators. So I want that just to be a message and lesson to the FBA or entrepreneurs who sell on the Amazon platform, that aggregators are not the only choice. And if you go with them, you're limiting the competition, the deal structure, the total value. So with that said,
I think I totally agree with what you're saying. So they were just a new player that kind of showed up in the last couple of years, but they're not the only player. Got it.
And they did a great thing, and they continue to do a great thing, and that is, Quiet Light's been around for 15 years, and we've been trying to get the message across that these businesses have value. They're valuable. You get aggregators who have raised billions of dollars shouting from the rooftops, "We'll buy your business, pay all cash, and close in 30 days." And their message resonated, and the interest level in buying FBA oriented businesses, I hate calling them FBA businesses, entrepreneurs selling on Amazon, has just gone up, exponentially. The multiples have gone up. The interest level has gone up. The sheer volume of entrepreneurs that sell on Amazon has gone up. So it's all been very, very positive, but I want to dispel some myths and give some suggestions on must-do negotiation tactics when selling directly to an aggregator.
And so give me some headlines here. Like what is happening in the space? We know that layoffs have happened at least 5 of the top 10 major aggregators, right?
Yeah.
What else have you seen? Just kind of spout off some news here.
Well, one in particular, they're just not manning up and doing the right thing. They've grown so fast, and I'm not going to name a name here, but this particular aggregator, like the 100 others, has grown so fast that they're just hiring bodies, whether they're qualified or not. And those bodies are not paying as much attention to the business as you or I would if it was ours. And a couple of times with this same aggregator, first, they don't pay all cash, first of all, in most cases. That's a fallacy. That's a pipe dream. It's not reality. Pay all cash, close in 30 days. So they negotiate in a seller note, an earnout, or what they call a stability payment, which is really an earnout. So you have to hit certain revenue benchmarks in order to get paid the earnout or the stability payment.
Which is a bad thing if
they run out of inventory when they ship it to the wrong country, right? This is what
that really happened.
This is what the underling did. I don't know what else to call this person. They just, instead of shipping it to the United States, where 90% of the revenue is, they shipped it to Australia, and the United States ran out of inventory.
Ouch.
And therefore, this particular seller did not get paid that earnout, right? And it was about $50,000. It was a small business. It wasn't one of ours. It was just one that I'm associated with, and I know the inner workings of it. So what has to happen there, anytime someone is selling directly to an Amazon aggregator, is 2 things that you must do if you've got an earnout or a stability payment. The stability payment is language that they made up. You Google it, you probably won't find it unless I've said something over on my EXITpreneur site. And that is that they say if the business in 12 months, if it's within 90% of the revenue when we bought it, then we'll pay you this stability payment. The stability payment usually equals 10% of the purchase price. So there's a few things you got to do with stability payments or an earnout. Number one, always negotiate that you have view only access to the seller account until you're paid in full. Okay, because the other situation that this occurred in, my client had view only access and kept hammering them. Look, you're gonna run out of inventory. You're gonna run out of inventory. And no, we got this. We got this. We're cool. We're good at what we do. We got this.
We hired the MBA grads. We've got the Excel, quants in the background, right? And we hired a couple Amazon executives. What could go wrong?
And we're giving them free beer in the lobby. Everything is cool. It's great. Yeah. So in this other situation, they ran out of inventory like a week. There was a week left, and they were at like 94, 95% of hitting the revenue goal, and they were absolutely going to hit it. And they ran out of inventory. My client kept telling them to buy more inventory. This was a $300,000 earnout. We had this clause in there and a second clause in there. Ultimately, he got paid. But you've got to have view only report access. These are the three things. I'll stop going on tangents. View only access to reports so you can remind them and stay on top of them so that you are not feeling left out in the dark. Number two, with any kind of earnout or stability payment, it's not 90%. If you hit 90% of the revenue, you get 200, you get that 10%. It should be steeped down. So 90%, you get all 10%. It's called $200,000. 85 to 90%, you get $175,000.
So tier it down. I got you.
Tier it down. No one that I know of other than Quiet Light negotiate that into the contracts. The third thing that you've got to try to add in there, and it's difficult, so you've got to have a good attorney to do it, is that if, Stephen, you're my aggregator, I'm selling you my business, and I'm going to say, Stephen, look, if you run out of inventory, if we've only got 5 SKUs and one of them generates 40% of the revenue, if you run out of inventory simply by mistake without proper planning, you've got plenty of money to buy inventory, so that's not an issue. For any reason other than a natural disaster, pandemic would count, you have to list what they are. All bets are off. You screw up, you run out of inventory, all bets are off. You owe me the earnout in full, or you owe me the seller note in full. No, I'm sorry, the stability payment in full. You've got to get those to me. You screw up, you got to pay me within 30 days. No questions asked. That's going to make them pay a lot more attention to the details, especially also if you've got view-only access to the reports and can remind them what to do.
So we're joined today by Joe Valley. He is with Quiet Light Brokerage. He's also penned and authored a really up-and-coming book here, EXITpreneur's Playbook. And you can find that at EXITpreneur.io. So check that book out. So Joe really knows his stuff when it comes to exiting a business. And on my channel a year ago, we started to do a lot of competitor intel, just trying to see, like, the space was just rapidly changing. We came out with a website called AmazonAggregator.com, and you can see that right here. And we were helping businesses get in touch. The lead flow on this site has gone down drastically. So I think the hype is diminishing it, right? We've had Thrasio on the podcast. We've had Perch on the podcast. We've had Foreign Brands and many, many others that we've kind of covered. And so you can see a laundry list. If anybody's curious, to go to AmazonAggregators.com and check these all out. We've done a bunch of them. But with that in mind, where do you think some of the biggest mistakes that the aggregators made in 2021 are, Joe?
I think that they didn't make good choices in terms of what they were buying, number one.
So bought the wrong businesses. That's what you mean, right? Not the wrong inventory, but the wrong business to begin with.
Well, either the wrong businesses or businesses that were teetering on a knife's edge, so to speak. And these are probably more of the newer aggregators. They needed to get in the game, they needed to spend money, and they were going to buy whatever they could, right? And then second, they didn't have the operational expertise to operate these businesses. They're very well educated, they're very well funded. They're probably charming as hell. They're probably good looking and trustworthy. and it makes you believe everything that they say, that, oh my God, these people are incredible. They're going to be able to do so much more with this business than I can. And the reality is they really can't. They don't know how to operate the business the way that you do. So if you are selling it to them and not getting all cash, you are risking that non-cash portion in a very high way, because they don't have the operational expertise. They should all just be hiring my Amazon guys to operate their Amazon business. Bottom line, right there.
Well, I appreciate the endorsement there. We manage over 240 brands, which is more than 95% of the aggregators at this point anyway. We just don't take equity in our own clients' businesses. We just manage it. All right. So with that in mind, right? So who's going to win? An aggregator that's well-funded but has the wrong people, or a brand owner with grit? Fight.
What are they fighting about?
On the platform, let's say brand to brand on Amazon.com. Who's going to win in the long run?
I think the Amazon brand owner, not the aggregator, the brand owner. As long as their funding is there to make sure they don't run out of inventory and can remain profitable.
We've seen so many funding options come out in the last couple of years, so I don't think that it's really much of a challenge anymore. And I saw you nod your head there, so you've seen it too.
Yeah, I've got some up on the partner page on the EXITpreneur site. So yeah,
I think a lot of the aggregators entering the space probably propelled the funding to come. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. In fact, I know, Thrasio bought one of them. It was one of the original people in Thrasio, Yardline Capital. So yeah, it created an opportunity. Again, there's so much good that has come out of the aggregators doing what they've done.
Yeah, to be clear, we're not doing this podcast to bash the aggregators.
Yeah,
we're just talking about the events and the news and how many of the aggregators are struggling right now, and the why. And so I think there's a lot of content out there on how to sell a business and where to go. And I think we've done a lot of that on our podcast, but in this particular episode, I really want to get to the heart of like the decision-making, and why, and like where the space is going to go because of some of the decisions that have been made. Right. So, if you're a brand that sold to an aggregator and they're liquidating, or they're going to sell to another aggregator, you're in a pretty tough spot right now, are you not?
Yeah, they definitely are. Hopefully all the terms and conditions transfer over to that other aggregator that's going to buy them. There's definitely going to be some consolidation in the industry. And, they're learning from their colleagues' mistakes, right? So one of the top aggregators, we'll say top 5, because that'll narrow it down to who I'm talking about. The plan was to go public, but they couldn't, because their accounting was such a mess. They had a separate bank account, separate QuickBooks for every business that they bought. And that's changing. They're consolidating all in one, getting it streamlined, and they've taken their foot off the gas pedal in terms of buying Amazon businesses. So because they just can't keep adding more while trying to fix this colossal mess of 100 different businesses that they're operating. So the others are learning from that as well.
So is it still the best practice to have like a holding company and then have one LLC per brand per Seller Central account? Is that still the best practice, Joe?
I can't speak to the best practices for the aggregators.
Let's say I have 3 brands, 3 Seller Central accounts. Is it still the best practice to have like a holding company and 3 LLCs?
Yes, for that type of individual, yes. When it gets to the aggregator side, if they've got 100, 150 of them, I think it might become more challenging and made it more difficult for these guys to go public, which was the goal of one of them. So they've got to straighten all that out. Say that again.
Thrasio.
No, I'm saying one of the top 5. Could be them.
Yeah. Well, I happen to know the storyline on that one.
Yeah,
all right.
And they're good people. They've done well. But like any business that's growing too fast, there's growing pains, there's mistakes, and there's bad hires. And that's happening with Thras, it's happening with Perch, it's happening with Elevated, happening with everybody. The way that I think that the aggregator space is going to win is if the aggregator that jumps into the space, if they don't think as big as Thras has, right? There's an aggregator down in Austin, Texas called Profound Commerce. Have you ever connected with Profound yet? And Matt
I
Howard?
don't think I have.
So Matt
They're
was
they're not even
simply,
on my Amazon aggregators page yet. Must be relatively new.
I think probably I know they raised 53 million and got it last September, October, something like
Okay,
that.
yeah. That was kind of right around the time where I stopped tracking a lot of this because I was
Yeah.
like kind of old news for me at that point.
So
I,
this
I, I
is,
interviewed I
go
interviewed
ahead.
50 aggregators in 2021, and I walked away from that just being flabbergasted. I was like, "There's no way that 80% of you guys are going to succeed with the model that you started with in 2021. Just
Right.
no way." All right,
The,
you were about
the
to say?
model, yeah, the model that will work, I think, is the model that Matt has put together, which is first, he was a client of Quiet Lights. He bought one non-Amazon business, and then he bought 4 Amazon brands, one by one. And he was working full time, and he was operating these on the side. So he had the personal expertise to operate them, and he had VAs helping him. He went out and he raised
Some capital.
$53 million to continue that process, but not to, go public. His goal is to, bring 10 or 15 of them together, have a hell of a machine and a hell of a valuable business, and exit it, right? Either to one of the larger aggregators or to a private equity firm or somebody else that wants to jump into the space.
So we got some questions coming in. We're going to jump on those in a second here. Real quick before we do that, on your prediction model here, what is the year going to be when the first aggregator goes public? Do you think they could pull? I know they can't do it this year, but like, could they pull it off by 2023? Do you think that, or do you think it's going to be 2024 or longer?
I would think 2023 can.
You think it will?
Yeah, okay. I do. At least
so that would be promising. That means people would turn it around and make the model work, which is interesting. All right. So going to the questions here.
But let me just say the model doesn't have to work only if they go public. It still works. They're still very profitable, and exiting for 100 million is still pretty damn good.
Even Mr. Musk is trying to take Twitter private right now, right? Like, so I mean, you don't have to have a public business for this model to work, right?
Right. All right.
So let's go to Mr. King here. How can you start with zero capital?
Start what? Buying Amazon businesses?
Yeah, I think let's go with that.
All right. Well, you've got to. I don't think you can. First of all, unless you can convince friends, family, relatives, investors to believe in you and give you money. I think that the best advice I was ever given as an entrepreneur, I was on the golf course with my mentor, Uncle Walter. And he said, Joe, you've got to set up a line of credit as an entrepreneur. There's going to come a time in your life when you're going to need it. If you don't need it now, you don't think it's urgent to set it up, but you will need it. And there was a time in my life when I needed it and I didn't follow Walter's advice. So do what Uncle Walter says and set up a line of credit. Either if you've got an investment portfolio, set up a line of credit. If you've got equity in your home, condo, whatever it might be, set up a HELOC just so that you've got access to that capital. Because if I'm going to believe and bet on you, I want you to have some skin in the game too.
So King, speaking of credits, is having too many LLCs bad for your business credit? That's Mr. King says, I've heard that.
I have never heard that, and I can't imagine why it would. Can't imagine.
I haven't either, so I think we can dispel that one.
Hey, look, I've got an e-commerce lending jersey on today to answer to the first question, King. E-commerce lending is coming out with a funding program that is not SBA oriented. Okay, and they've got some creative options that'll be coming up in the next few months that may get you most of the way to starting with very, very little capital.
I have to agree with Matt Miller here. Joe is one of the easiest to understand, cuts right through the thick of it, and explains complicated situations like the aggregators and buying and selling brands. Matt says, good stuff. Thanks for the insight, Joe. SG says the aggregators silently cleared a lot of brand owner competition. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Can you explain what it means to me first?
I think what they're saying is they bought a bunch of brand owners out who have exited, and now they don't have that competition. I think that's what they're saying.
They bought a bunch of brand owners out, and now they don't have competition. So possibly, yeah. So I get it. So they bought a cleaning solution for greasy hands, and then they bought the next one and the next one and the next one. they have tried that. But no matter what, if it's a good niche, there's always going to be new entrepreneurs that are coming in to fight in that space. I actually have a client that sold to one of the aggregators, and they had another brand in the pest space, electronic pest space. You plug it in, it keeps the pests away. That aggregator unknowingly didn't know that my client owned that other brand and played some really dirty tricks trying to get them suspended and banned from Amazon. Really, really dirty
of black
tricks.
hat stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So they're not just playing, above board. They're playing some black hat stuff as well. So you got to be careful there.
Well, that's not good to hear. I think the inflation. Go ahead.
I think if the good people at the top knew what the people down below were doing, they'd put a stop to it very quickly.
Yeah.
Left
hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing at Amazon. Can sometimes happen at other companies downstream as well. I think the inflation will also give them a tough time to get their returns. It will be a long time before they make decent ROI. So government says inflation rate 7-8%. I personally say it's 25 right now. Joe, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but do you have an opinion on the inflation rate?
Not specific to the number, right? I think that no matter what, the government is faking the numbers. It's usually higher. So let's go with that. I think it's definitely going to have an impact on the aggregators being able to grow. And look, we all know that it's having an impact on people's businesses, just the cost of everything. And I think you mentioned to me the other day, Stephen, that even now Amazon is passing on the fuel charge to the
yes, that
Amazon
just came out last week. So Amazon's now charging an extra 5% on FBA fees. So 5% might be 40 cents on a shipment. But that could be an extra 1.5 percentage points of your margin overall on average, based on kind of some quick and dirty math.
I think that people, the owners, don't want to raise the prices on their brands, but I think
they have to.
They're going to have to if they want to be profitable and survive.
I was on some national media in the last couple of days, and I put out my prediction that we're going to see Amazon prices in 2022 go up 20%. And I'm going to be in the minority saying that. I know that, but I'm pretty confident. So,
I think we've all heard enough stories and tried it enough personally in our own businesses. When you raise prices, the consumer goes, "Wow, must be a better product," and your conversion rate can sometimes go up as well. So
I had to have heard those stories, but in this case, it's not a necessarily good idea, bad idea, conversion, traffic conversation. For me, it's just a pure inevitability argument, right? Like the cogs are up, the supply chain's whack, and the government's printing too much money and quantitative easing and whatnot. So it's just very, very difficult. Maybe you could weigh in real quick on why owning a business. So like this is going to be a biased answer for both of us. Okay. So it's a biased answer for me because I want my clients to retain their businesses and not sell, because most of the aggregators don't keep an agency on. They take it in-house and then screw it up. But it's probably a good time to also purchase a business instead of sitting on cash. You probably have stronger feelings on why buying a business is a good time right now.
Well, I think it's always a good time to buy a business. Personally, I don't care about the economic downturns and upturns and all that good stuff. When everything is going swimmingly, there's more competition for the businesses in theory. Now the margin's going to be a little bit lower, which is going to bring the multiple down, right? Because your SDE is going to be lower, and your multiple goes up with certain steps up in the multiple. I think there will be a slowdown in businesses that are listed for sale. We grew 85% last year. I'm shooting for a minimum of 25% this year. And we have more advisors. We have 15 advisors that will be with us for the full calendar year. Some of them started partway through the year last year. So I'm really dramatically reducing our growth rate because expectations, because I believe more brand owners are going to go, yeah, no, I'm just going to hold on another year. I got to wait till these things come down, and it may be 2 or 3 years until they come down. And those are the business owners that have their stuff together, right? We decided this was going to be Indiana Jones PG, so I'm saying stuff. They have their stuff together, right? It's the business owners that are flying by the seat of their pants. and just taking distributions as they need a cash for their personal income. They're going to take smaller and smaller distributions. They're not going to have money for inventory. They're going to wake up one day and decide to sell because it's just too much of a grind.
It's the
And
time.
those are
I don't know if they have a swear word in Indiana Jones, but there was the movie when they pulled a heart out of Indiana Jones. That was the reason they made PG-13s. It was like, that was the movie. So,
yeah.
but yeah, okay. So we got a few more questions in the pipeline here. Jahil says, can you go over the best practices again if an Amazon seller has or wants to create different brands and seller central accounts? So I'm going to weigh in first, and I'll pass it over to you, Joe.
Yeah.
So in my experience, Jahil, I usually prefer a single power seller central account. There's going to be a very diverse opinion on this set. Now, the number one reason, though, to have a second account from an Amazon standpoint, in my opinion, is that you may want to sell the second account to somebody else, but keep the first. A la, I like my beer glass brand, but I don't like my Kleenex brand. Right. And so I sell off one and I keep the one I like to keep doing. Right. So that's generally what I see. Another reason would be like if you have multiple investors, maybe you take an investor on this brand, and then you have a different set of investors on this brand over here. So those are my general thoughts. And in terms of best practices, I personally recommend a holding company with an LLC roll up, one LLC per account. So those are my thoughts. Joe, you have a lot of experience on this. What are your thoughts?
I think that you just have to think about who you're going to eventually sell the business to, because you are going to sell the business or you're going to exit in some way, shape, or form. You're not going to live forever. You're going to get
Every
tired of the
business
brand.
ever ends in one of four ways, right?
Absolutely. So I'm 100% on board with what you talked about. You're going to want to exit one of them. You know, the beer glass brand versus the mouse brand. That mouse brand has taken off. And you're like, okay, I'm making a lot more money, working less. This has, much greater chances of growing to being an 8-figure exit than this one. So let's just sell this one off and we'll get rid of the investors and we'll use that capital to grow the second one. I hear that every week. It's when you have them tangled together that it becomes very difficult to separate out the financials and get a true valuation for the business. And then you're going to scare buyers off as well, because buyers are going to go like, yeah, I know that I can take the ASINs and move them to a new seller account that I set up, but I've also got to then remove all that inventory, send it to my warehouse, relabel it, ship it back in. I, the buyer, am taking all of the risk. Please don't make me do that. You're going to lose 8 out of 10 buyers right there.
Let alone brand registry transfer. It's gotten a lot better, but it's still not fun.
Yeah. So when you're doing it, Jaleel, just think about what's going to be seamless and easiest for the buyer. Think about them first, and you're going to get the most value for your business.
Abdallah says, thank you for the great information. You're so welcome.
You're welcome.
King, you keep asking the questions. King, we love them. I can't wait for e-commerce lending to drop. Any time frame on that? And I think maybe percentage of cost on that. I'm not sure what they're getting at. What do you think?
It was my comment about Stephen getting non-SBA funding available. Just go to ecommercelending.com and hit Stephen up. I think it's STEPHEN at ecommercelending.com.
All right, cool. I have an uncle that gave me some great advice on getting a DNB number and building my business credit. That is my next goal. What's a DNB?
Dun and Bradstreet. Look, man, I've sold personally 100 million, helped facilitate another 500 million in transactions through Quiet Light. I've sold several of my own businesses and never had a DNB number. I don't see the impact of this, but that's just the world that I live in. Your uncle may be a hell of a lot smarter than I am. It's not too hard.
At least he doesn't have as much hair, or is doing as well with the hair. So I know that running my own agency has made me balder than having 4 kids, 6 and under. So
I don't know how you do all of that personally.
Prosperity in all things. That's how I do it. All right. So cool. So Joe, let's go back to kind of our main topic here. When we're talking about the fall, not like the fall and never getting back up, but the downgrading of some of the aggregators. We know that many of them have had to do layoffs. We know many have paused their hiring. We know that there's a lot of restructuring going on. And I have a dozen different sources of information that I've seen this in. What is your overall sentiments of what's going on?
I'm not shocked or surprised at all. When I go back to the original aggregator that I see as the original, it's Richard, or it's 101 Commerce, RJ, or Richard Jolly Chandra called me and said, "Hey, Joe, we're going to buy 101 Amazon businesses in the next 24 months." And I'm like, "You're crazy. There aren't enough to buy." This was back in 2015 or 16. And he said, "Here's the kicker. You know what? I'm not going to sign into a single one of those." I was like, "Okay, good luck. You're going to fail." He ended up selling to Goja. Um, I think that this space is a great space. I think they're going to do very good things for decades to come. I mean, think about it. We've been doing, commerce the same way for thousands of years. Now, for the last 15, we've been doing it electronically. We're still at the tip of the iceberg. And
Is there like a story of like some failed aggregators in a different sector? Like was there a failed P&G, or was there like anything in other sectors you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm sure there are lots of situations like that. But with 101 Commerce, they were able to sell to another aggregator, Goja. So there's going to definitely be some consolidation in the. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the coming months, definitely the coming years. But if I wouldn't be surprised if there's consolidation this year, or some of them will just simply shift. Right. So there's one here in Charlotte that was an aggregator originally. They failed at that, so they started using their lead generation program to then send leads out
Get,
to
get,
other aggregators
get commissions on it,
and,
become a lead flow magnet.
and get a referral fee. That started to dry up, so they said, "You know what, we're going to be a broker." And so they're just trying to do whatever they can to not have to actually get a job.
Speaking of consolidation, I think it was yesterday I saw that Celix consolidated or merged with another technology conglomerate. What are your thoughts on all of the mergers and acquisitions we've seen just in the Amazon space?
Oh, I think it goes beyond the brands for sure. There are going to be roll-ups and mergers of the SaaS platforms as well. There's going to be roll-ups and mergers of the agencies as well. It just makes sense, right? So if you go back to, Carnegie days, he, would buy businesses that were directly in his distribution model or lead flow model, and he kept buying them to own them all and increase his margins. Smart people with the human capital resources and the financial resources to do that are going to do it, no doubt.
All right, let's jump back to some of our questions here. So Zawar says, do aggregators require a US LLC behind Amazon accounts, or does any country's PVT LTD qualify to sell the business?
That's a great question. The answer is that every aggregator is different. They're not all going to require the same thing. And I would bet that in your situation, there's an aggregator that would buy exactly what you have. The problem is that there's lots of others that won't. And because of that, you're going to limit the total number of buyers that you have. And when you limit the total number of buyers that you have, you're limiting competition. You're going to get less for the business. You're not going to get all cash. You're going to get a funky deal structure. So in a ideal world, a U.S. entity with everything registered in the United States is going to excite at the very least the U.S. aggregators the most. And again, don't just sell to the aggregators. Quiet Light only sold 30% to the aggregators. So don't just think you got to sell to an aggregator. You're going to get more money if you put that listing out there to every possible buyer. We had
so
3.7 listings. Oh, it's individual buyers, people that have rolled up 2 or 3 businesses. It's Joe Schmo in the corporate world that gets an exit package and wants to work from home. It's every. I'm going to go with all the sayings. Joe Schmo. It's every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there that wants to be an entrepreneur. They've been living in a different world and they're buying. It's Walker Dybel's book. It's acquisition entrepreneurship. They're buying their way into being an entrepreneur.
Let's plug your book here. So Joe, in your EXITpreneur playbook, I've read your book. I found it very interesting and very down to earth. What's the number one reason somebody should pick up your book today?
If you want to know everything that's in my head and everything I've done over, $500 million in transactions in the online space. It's all there. One of the nicest compliments I got was somebody posted a review on Amazon that they said it felt like I was sitting across from Joe at a pub having a beer, learning what was inside his head. So hopefully it's a very easy read. There's the Kindle, there's the book, there's the Audible version. But your business is very likely your most valuable asset. Do you want to trust the aggregator's opinion of the value of it? Remember, the aggregators or buyers in general, their job is to buy your business for as little as possible. Your job is to sell your business, and my job is to sell your business for as much as possible. So there's a conflict there. The book will give you the tools you need to understand the value of your business and how to sell it for as much as possible. One quick example. Doesn't matter how big or small your business is. I was at an event back in October called, it was eight seller summit with e-commerce fuel, sitting around a fire pit. There's only about 25, 27 people there. And I was sitting around a fire pit with this guy named Kevin, and Kevin's telling me about his business. And he had an offer for 10 times on his business, 10 times seller's discretionary earnings, very big business. Wow. He was doing like 50 million in revenue. And I said, well, how did you come up with the calculation of discretionary earnings? And he talked a little bit. I'm like, did you do an add back schedule? And he went, what's that? All right. So he's very, very successful, but didn't understand the basics of the valuation model. He just got somebody to call him and said, hey, love your business, would like to make you an offer. Here it is. Problem is that it was 10 times of a number that was way too small. It was the net income number, not the seller's discretionary earnings. So I went very basic. I said, Kevin, do you guys have cash back credit cards? He goes, yeah, absolutely. We do credit card stacking. And he gets very excited.
Like, yeah, we got like $100K a year that we get back on credit card points. And
$600,000.
$600,000
a year. $600,000 a year.
I
was so excited about it.
I would like 10 times back on $600K. Yes, please.
Yes. So that's it, right? $600,000. It was all over in his personal account. It's still an owner benefit, so it should go in the add back schedule. 10 times that, it's $6 million added to the value of his business. One little conversation. There's 18 of those examples in chapter 11 of the book. Actually, there's a 19th, because we're all Amazon FBA oriented here, talking about FBA aggregators. There's a 19th add back I did not mention in the book. Stephen, let me ask you a question. Does every aggregator subscribe to a service like Helium 10, like Jungle Scout, or some higher level? Every single one of them. Does everyone that's an FBA seller on this call right now do the same, Jungle Scout, Helium 10?
If they don't, they need to change that right now.
Right. So therefore, when they are selling directly to an aggregator, does Helium 10 or Jungle Scout, does that cost carry forward to the aggregator? No, it does not. So if they're spending a combined, let's just call it simple math, $500 a month, which would be high, $6,000 a year, that goes into the add back schedule because it's an expense that does not carry forward to the new owner of the business. If you're selling to an aggregator, they already own it. That's black and white, math and logic. They cannot successfully argue against that. It should absolutely be in the add back schedule in that situation.
Another quick plug for Quiet Light's podcast. So when I was, doing Amazon alone by myself, I tuned into the Quiet Light podcast and just learned a tremendous amount of information from it. It's one of the best Amazon podcasts out there. Even though they focus a lot about selling the business, you'll see things like, where's the best source for Philippines VAs? I've been on it. I've talked about SEO and all these other great topics. So if you guys haven't subscribed to the Quiet Light podcast, be sure to do that. I'll put a link in the comment section right now. Thanks for putting out all of that great content, by the way, Joe.
My pleasure. It's fun. Get to meet great people like you.
All right. So, Joe, as we wrap up here, last question for you today. What is your prediction in 2022? Doesn't have to be specifically about aggregators. Could just be about the Amazon space at large.
I think that we're going to see a slowdown in terms of the total volume of transactions of FBA businesses sold. I think that the multiples won't necessarily come down, but the total transaction size will come down a bit. I think Quiet Lights is still going to go up, right? Our median transaction size was 1.8 million last year.
Because you guys have a hedgehog. You guys are a great company. Rita, good to great that's why you can still grow despite some circumstances, is because Quiet Light's a great company.
Yeah, our transaction sizes are growing too. It's kind of silly, but crazy. I think that the latter half of this year is going to be more challenging. I think it's really going out into 2023. I'm concerned about how big those challenges are, because people are going to do everything they can to survive this year because they're dealing with so much. And then they're going to get to the end of the year and they're going to be, so tired and worn out. They're just going to go, I need to get out. I need to move on. I'm going to close it. I need to sell it. And I'm worried about the values of those companies when they get to that point. So back to the book, man, there's so many basic things in there that will help you understand the value of what you have and how to reverse engineer a pathway to that. And the thing is that as an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, Stephen, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been self-employed since 1997. We're all going to have great years as entrepreneurs. The reality is we're going to have pretty awful days, pretty awful weeks, pretty awful months, and sometimes pretty awful years. 2022 could be one of those awful years when you're excited in 2023 that you have a carry forward loss. I've had them. You should never be excited about a carry forward loss in your tax returns. If you have a goal, if you set an exit goal or a revenue goal and you review it often and you share it with Stephen, share it with me, share it with a colleague, share it with somebody that you can trust, and then revisit that goal on a regular basis, it's going to increases your chances of success by 76%. Accountability. You got to set the goal, you got to be detailed, and then you've got to be accountable to it.
Speaking
you do
of
those things, it'll get you through it.
Extreme ownership's on my desk there. You gotta be extreme ownership, have that accountability to own the outcome there. So King asked for other books. And so King, definitely read Joe's Exit Entrepreneur book. Joe, any other books that have influenced your life?
I would always give a shout out to my buddy Walker Dybel and tell people to pick up Buy Then Build. It's going to help you, King, when you're on the hunt for buying businesses with as little money down. And then my recent favorite, it's been around for a long time, and you just mentioned it, Good to Great. It's going to help you make the right decisions, get the right people on the bus to make sure that your business is growing.
And last one I'll plug is Traction. I keep this one on my desk because I quote from it frequently, and I always tell my team to follow that. So, all right, guys.
Who wrote that book, Traction? I gotta do a little plug here.
Right there, Gino.
A guy named Gino Wickman, who's on the cover of my book. Who endorsed the cover of my book?
Pull that back up. Yeah,
who was that?
I thought that was so incredible that you were able to get him to say some nice things. Quote at the very top there. This book is a must read for online entrepreneurs. So Gino, giving Joe Valley some love, coming from the Traction book to Exit Entrepreneur. All right, so check that out. That is the My Amazon Guy podcast. I will be back on Friday for my regular Q&A, Ask Me Anything. So stop on by if you want to ask any Amazon questions. And if you need to exit your business, Joe Valley is the guy to talk to. Thanks for coming on, Joe.
You bet. Talk to you soon, guys.
We'll see you.